I feel like on YouTube these days it's less about critical reasoning and argumentation and more about a popularity contest of worldviews.
In other words, PCS isn't getting the ratings he would like and chooses to blame that on anything other than his inability to exercise reason and logic or form a coherent argument.
Thunderfoot posted a video called The Problem with Religion, in which he espoused the view that science deals purely in the natural world, creating predictive models, and religion is utterly divorced from the natural world and has no explanatory content.
Actually, the main point of Thunderfoot's video was that due to its explanatory powers, science leads to convergent ideas, whereas religion has led to nothing but divergent ideas due to its inability to explain anything, hence its many denominations.
The first problem I see here is a simple category mistake.
PCS will now try to explain that science and religion deal in non-overlapping magisteria, and in so doing, entirely miss the point of Thunderfoot's video. Again.
Science and religion, metaphysics, are two different disciplines.
Got that?
I also see another mistake here, and that's simply ignoring the value of certain things that we find in religion concerning the natural world.
PCS is now going to explain some of the things religion has taught us about the magisterium it's not supposed to overlap with. Logical consistency, anyone?
In 1929, the Hubble telescope...
Did you get that? That's the Hubble Space Telescope in 1929.
...discovered that galaxies were moving apart, which led to the expanding universe model. Now, it may be interesting for you guys to know that the Bible has been saying this for over 3,000 years.
Ah yes, I recall how theologians had been telling us for centuries that the universe was expanding exponentially because it said so in the Bible, and we just didn't listen.
In Genesis, we learn that the stars are in the heavens.
No way.
And in 17 verses in the Bible, we learn that the heavens are being stretched by God.
Yeah, okay, it does say here that he stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out as a tent to dwell in.
So, the Bible has been saying for thousands of years that the place where the stars are, outer space, is stretching, moving apart.
No. The only thing we have to go on to deduce what the author says, or indeed means to say here, are his own words. The author here is describing the heavens as being held stretched by God, just as tent pegs hold a tent stretched tight. He is not indicating that the stretching continues. If he were, he would make nonsense of his two metaphors, a curtain and a tent. If you continue to expand a curtain or a tent, they will quickly be rendered useless. Thus, the author never intended to say this, and in fact doesn't say this. This isn't just reaching or stretching. It's utter invention to try and make the Bible fit the facts discovered by science. Let's take a quick look at some of the other Bible passages PCS claims to be describing an exponentially expanding universe and see if they stand up to even basic scrutiny. Ezekiel 1:22. This whole passage is describing a vision, hence the reference to a likeness of the firmament. Even ignoring that, there is no way one could read this excerpt as describing an exponentially expanding universe. Stretched is not stretching, and the firmament means a solid structure, certainly not an expanding one. This is pure invention once again. Isaiah 42:5. No surprise, invention once again. Stretched is past tense. That means the act is complete. To say this describes an exponentially expanding universe is attempting to have your cake and eat it. If stretched, applied to the heavens, describes an ongoing event, then spread, applied to the earth, must also be ongoing, which it in fact isn't. Clearly neither is what the author intended to say, nor what he in fact does say. Isaiah 52:12. Given that we know, as a scientific certainty, that man was not created but evolved from a primate ancestor, the scientific credentials of this author are already proven to be those of a Jew living in Bronze Age Palestine. 0. That aside, the word here is, once again, stretched. Past tense. The author neither meant to say, nor in fact did say, that this would continue exponentially. More invention. Isaiah 48:13. Note here the use of the word hath, which means has, which means past tense. The author neither intended to say, nor in fact did say, that the heavens would continue to expand exponentially. More invention. And so it continues. The vast majority of the verses quoted here refer to a past and completed event by their use of either the word hath, meaning has, which is past tense, or the word stretched, also past tense. The others refer either to visions so vague as to mean just about anything with enough imagination, or to the act of holding the heavens stretched as indicated by the provided metaphors. In summary, there is absolutely nothing in the Bible that could honestly be taken to mean its authors had knowledge of an exponentially expanding universe. This may go some way to explaining why no one was shouting about this fact based on the Bible prior to Edwin Hubble's now thoroughly vindicated discovery. This is Bible apologetics of the worst flavour. Not only does it do science an injustice, but it does your religion an injustice as well.
This video is not actually about the video that Thunderfoot made, but is actually about a video that Thunderfoot favorited, called 9 Reasons You're a Christian. On the basis of the arguments I'm about to present, I would ask you guys to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending on what I'm about to tell you. So let's look at the first reason of the 9 that apparently we're Christians. So, this video says that we're only Christians because our parents are Christians.
Sorry, no. It suggests that if your parents are Christian, you probably are as well. The point that is being made is that this is one of the common reasons people are Christian, without question, and as if to prove the point...
Kyle, I think you were raised a Christian, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
That's called the genetic fallacy.
PCS apparently took the time to look up the definition of genetic fallacy without bothering to read or comprehend what it means, or what the video he's critiquing is actually trying to say. For example, if the video author were suggesting that Kyle's parents were lunatics, they raised Kyle Christian, therefore Christianity were false, that would be a genetic fallacy, because the conclusion doesn't follow from the argument. However, the point being made here is about the source of Christianity and not about its truth. So, that's a massive thumbs down, Sean.
Were your parents Christians?
They were at some point, definitely. And they still are now.
So number 2 is the same fallacy as number 1.
Once again, PCS fails to grasp what the video he's critiquing is actually trying to say, and so incorrectly makes a charge of genetic fallacy. Sorry, Sean, but Simon says it's a thumbs down.
Were you brainwashed from a young age to believe Christianity?
No, I wasn't. Kind of just came into my life at some point. I don't remember when.
I think you were raised a Christian, is that correct?
Yes, I was. No, I wasn't.
What it comes down to is, first of all, this objection that we've been brainwashed to believe Christianity. It's certainly not true in all cases. It might be true in some.
By obsessing about the part of this statement he finds most objectionable, PCS misses the main point, that many people tend to practice the first religion they learned from an early age.
But again, that actually has nothing to do with the truth value of Christianity, so another genetic fallacy.
And for the same reason the genetic fallacy didn't apply to the last 2 statements, it doesn't apply here. Tell him the bad news, Simon. There's no point in addressing the rest of PCS's points because they're all based on the same foundational misunderstanding of the video he's critiquing. PCS has demonstrated his inability to comprehend the subject matter he's addressing, his inability to grasp concepts of basic logic, and his inability to get even basic facts correct. So Sean, based on what you've said and nothing else, Simon says that's a big old thumbs down. Let's just do a quick roundup of some of the other nonsense that VenomFangX has spouted in this video.
In an education, you are taught all alternatives and you can divide between truth and error.
It's not surprising that PCS is an advocate of this approach to education, where students are presented with a shopping list of ideas from which they can pick and choose their own facts. After all, this is the guise under which creationists have been trying to introduce unscience into public schools for decades now, ostensibly in the name of fairness. There are, of course, some obvious problems with this approach. When we apply it to all disciplines, we're not in fact teaching anything, just confusing students with the notion that all alternatives are equally valid, which of course is not the case. In reality, teaching is a guided process of exposing students to well-established facts. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. Sean, people thumbs down your videos because your arguments are asinine and you have no understanding of logic. It has nothing to do with worldviews. That just leaves it for me to hand over to Simon to deliver the final verdict.